Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above. In the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, where I teach you to do magic and live responsibly, and the links to get in contact with me directly, either for services or to just support the channel, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum with Norton's Ordinal, Chapter 6. Towards the matters of concordance, consider there be no variance between such things as should accord, for a variance may grow discord. Whereby your works may be loft with all of your labor and all of your cost, he that will take our work in hand 5 concords, he must understand. The first concord is need to mark whether his mind accord with the work, which shall be Lord to pay for all, else all your labor destroy ye shall. The second concord is needful to ken between this craft and her workmen. The third shall serve well for your intents when work accordeth with instruments. The fourth concord must well be sought with the place where it shall be wrought, for truly it is no little grace to find a perfect working place. The fifth is of concord and love between your works and the sphere above. Of these 5 concords, rehearse we shall, beginning with the first avowal. All right, so I'm not going to add to this because all of this is going to be explained in greater detail, and we will add if we need to there. For the first, you shall find that few full lords be stable of mind. Holy shit, if that is not correct, I do not know what is. Right? We have a problem with humanity, right? The problem with humanity is that those people who deserve the power do not seek the power, and the people who seek the power absolutely do not deserve the power. This is part of that, right? Most people who seek the power don't deserve it because they're not stable of mind, right? We have several examples of that in current American politics, right? The No Kings protest, that is definitely one of those things, and it is supported by leadership, even funded. And so that is one of the examples, but there are many examples. Another of the examples is that Congress and the Senate can lie on the Senate floor with absolutely no repercussions whatsoever. But if you are able to do that, then you do not deserve to be in the position. If you cannot win on the merits of truth, then you do not need to win at all. You should be of such sound, stable mind that you should be able to identify that. If you have to lie about circumstances to your constituency in order to continue to be supported, then you should not be supported. You should remove yourself from that position, but that's not going to happen. See Nancy Pelosi, see Chuck Schumer, see Mitch McConnell. All of them are examples of people who should have left several decades ago. Right? Very few lords are stable of mind. Now, here in the United States, we don't have lords, but we do have leadership. We do have people who have placed themselves in positions where they have to make decisions. That is the equivalent of a lord, right? I do not hold to divine ordainment of this person to be the ruler forever with his progeny, right? And so I think that the way we do it is better. It's just not quite right yet. For the most part, the people who seek the position of leadership really don't deserve it. The people who are kind of forced into it, they do. I mean, very few lords be stable of mind is absolutely true. They be hasty, the work is long, they would have you do nature wrong. That is true as well. Some now be onward as hasty as fire, have a year, after have no desire. Huh. This is definitely a thing, right? People seek when it doesn't immediately appear, they discard. That is the best way to do that, to look at that, is through the lens of New Year's resolutions, right? One day, every single year, most of the population makes a decision for themselves that they are going to change something about themselves. And then when it doesn't immediately just spring forth, they're like, whatever, I'll try again next year. Right? They don't look at it as, well, I have to adjust with the way that I'm doing it. It's like, well, I failed. Right? Once they get into it, they just kind of burn out. Now, I've been guilty of that myself. There are several of my endeavors that I have started and not finished. Right? You can go back through like when I did the Reddit thing, am I an asshole? And I was doing this with that, trying not to finish the Bible study. Right? I burned out on that fairly quickly, right? When we were doing Cornelius Agrippa's book, right? We burned out on that fairly quickly. And so, in a way, I'm somewhat like that, but I like to think that is more of an identifying something that doesn't work, rather than not having the follow through to complete, right? And some in a week, and it is no nay, will change their minds, and some in a day. And for 1 month have full belief, and the next month they will the art reprieve. It were much better for such to cease, than for this art to put them in prease. I agree, right? I one of the very first warnings I give in the book is, if you are not dedicated to seek it through, or see it through, it is better not to begin. It is better not to stop, to go with the current system that you're in. If you do not have the dedication to continue on, there are dangers that are associated, and if you do not have the dedication, you should not be involved. You should be able to identify that within yourself, and if you can't, you're not ready for it anyway. So, let such like butterflies wander and pass, and learn the lesson both more and last. Following the sentence of this holy letter, attengens ad finilg ad finium fortiae, diaphanens omnia sovietiae. I don't know that, right? Fortiae is, this is fortitude, basically. Ad finium is the finish, and so this is probably, if you don't have the will to finish, then don't begin. But I don't know enough. That is, proceed mightily to the end from the beginning, meager the find, all things disposing in the mean space, with great suavity, and that cometh of grace. All short-witted men immutable, such must needs be variable. And some do every man believe, such credence doth their coffers grieve. To every new tale to them told, they give credence and leave the old. But some lords be stable of wit, such be apt to finish it. Every such lord or master of this work, be he layman or be he clerk, be he rich man, knight, abbot or lord, he hath with this art great concord. So in order to take up this work right now, this was in the days when you didn't really get to start the work until somebody gave you permission, right? He sought out a master, he gave us those details. Other people seek him as a master. He has not given us those details. But it told you that you can only choose one, right? You can only choose one person to apprentice in the craft, which I definitely disagree with, but it is understandable why. And it is because of this, right? To find a suitable person for the craft definitely be a problem, especially in the days when not everybody was literate, or even remotely so. Not everybody had their mathematics. No, there was no investigation of self for the most part at all, and so it was exceedingly difficult even then to do this. But even now, right, with the wonders of the internet, it's still not easy to find. All right. The second concord with this art is when you can find apt ministers. No minister is apt to this intent, but he be sober, wise, and diligent, true and watchful, and also timorous, close of tongue and of body, not virtuous, cleanly of hands, in touching, curious, not disobedient, neither presumptuous. Such servants may your works of charge minister and save from all outrage. But trust not that 2 such servants or 3 may sufficient for your work be. If your matter be of quantity reasonable, then 8 such servants be convenable. 8 is an important number. Hold tight. You can find apt ministers. Sober, wise, and diligent, true, watchful, and timorous, close of tongue, of body not virtuous. That is what, 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cleanly of hands and touching. Like, there's more than an 8 here, okay. 8 is an important number, right? There is the correlation of 8 with the 7 internal chakras and the external chakra. It is in accordance with the visible spectrum with the beginning of the new one and the combination thereof. It is the harmonic. There is a wide variety of reasons why 8 is important. The fundamental harmonics of life, which may wind up being the standalone video for this, will give you a better understanding of many of those. But seeing 8 servants, right, we were told before, right, in this Norton's Ordinal, that you could only have 1 apprentice, right? A master could only have 1. That was fairly clearly stated. And so this is going to be a little bit different, right? If you can only have 1 apprentice, then who are these servants? Right? Such servants may your works of charge minister and save from all outrage. But trust not that 2 such servants or 3 may sufficient for your work be. So not 2 or 3. Now for me, that is automatically going to bring me into this, right? There is 3, which is the common, right? The base, the crown, and the heart seems to be fairly common between, right? There are more steps to it, and so to me that is going to be 8. That may or may not be a concurrence. We'll see if it gets clarified a little farther on, but that definitely tickles my fancy right there. But upon little quantity find ye shall 4 men able to perform all. That 1/2 of them must work, while the other sleepeth or goeth to kirk. For all, I guess that's going to be church, huh? For of this art ye shall not have your prey, but it be ministered as well by night and day. Okay, so this is talking about physical alchemy. That's okay. That's granted, okay? Right. This is not talking about internal. In this particular instance, it might be, but it does not appear to be. And so these is what you need to have in someone who is monitoring your experiment continually, except the Holy Sunday alone, from evening song begin till evensong be done. And while they work, they must needs eschew all rebaudery, else they shall find this true, that such mishap shall them befall, they shall destroy part of their works, or all. Right now, ribaldry is going to be sexual endeavors, right? For the most part. It also includes making dirty jokes. Now, I do not hold in accordance with this. I have worked works without having to abstain intentionally from sexual endeavors. That's the plainest way to put it. Now, if you are consumed by lust, then you will have problems. But you are meant to have a partner. There is something, right? This is going off of the idea that it is holy to not have sex, which is definitely not a thing. And so, to me, this is just going to be a misunderstanding. I mean, if you do something, right, here's the thing, right? If you're walking down the street and it starts to rain and you're like, God, please don't let it rain. And then you kick a rock and all of a sudden all the clouds part and all of the rain disappears. You can look at that as a direct answer to your prayer, or you can look at that as I kicked this rock and it made the clouds dissipate. Most people will tend towards the I kicked the rock and made the clouds dissipate. If you believe that something is true, you can convince yourself that it is, right? You can convince yourself that somebody had to die for your sins, for example. That is completely untrue. But if you believe that, then it is true for you. This is going to be the same thing with the sexual energy, right? If you believe that you have to fast in order to do the work, whatever that fast may be from, then that is exactly what is going to be true for you. That does not mean, however, that it is objectively true that it must be so. I have found, through experimentation, absolutely no reason to lend more credence towards semen retention, which a lot of people use, at all. It has had zero effect either way. Now, all of that, you should be sober, yes, especially if you are dealing with chemicals, right? If you are dealing with physical alchemy and you're creating acids, it would be in your best interest to be completely sober in the manner of doing so. Right? Mishandling of acids can lead to immediate death and dismemberment, and so you should be sober of mind. You should not be engaging in horseplay or even being distracted by ribaldry. And making jokes that are not necessarily appropriate, probably not going to have a whole lot of impact. But if you are misattentioned in your endeavors, then a whole lot of impact will ensue. Back to the text. Therefore, all of the ministers must be men, or else they must be all women. See that as the problem? Why is that a problem? Because this is an issue of self-control. This is an issue of you not being able to control yourself and blaming it upon something else. That is going to be victim mentality, right? Well, we can't do this works because these women are distracting us. Well, that is your problem, big guy. That is entirely within your mind. That is something that you need to reflect upon. That is something that you need to get in hand. You are not ready for the work if you are distracted by the fact that there might be a woman working next to you. You are not ready. Period. The end. There is no equivocation about that. This whole men and women need to be separated. Stupid idea. Like, ridiculously stupid idea. If you cannot control yourself, you are not ready for the work. But I guarantee you that things will be much more better. Much more better. Yeah, I know. If you actually have balance represented in you seeking the balance. Set them not occupied one with another, though some to you be sister or brother. Yet they must have some good disport, their great labors to recomfort. Then nothing shall better avance your work than shall this concordance. The third concord is manifold dirk to ordain instruments according to the work. As every chapter hath diverse intents, so hath it diverse instruments, both in matter and also in shape, and concord that nothing may mishap. As works of division and separation have small vessels for their operation, but vessels broad for humidification, and some deal broad for circulation, but long vessels for precipitation, both short and long serve sublimation. Narrow vessels are and 4 inches high, serve correction most proper lie. Of vessels, some can be made of lead, and some of clay, both quick and dead. Dead clay is called such a thing as hath suffered great roasting. Such mettled in powder with good raw clay will fire abide and not go away. But many clays will leap in fire, for such vessels do not desire. Other vessels be made of stone, and for fire sufficient, but few or none. Among workmen is as yet found, in any country of English ground, which of water nothing drink shall, and yet abide dry fire withal. Such stones, large for our intent, were a precious instrument. All other vessels be made of glass, that spiritual matter should not outpass. Of ashes of fern in this land every each one, but be made but elsewhere be of stone. Of our glass the better kind, the morning stuff ye shall it find, which was ashes the night before, standing in heat all night and more. The harder stuff is called freton, of clipping of other glasses it come. Tincture with annealing of glaziers will not purse him as there rehearse. By this doctrine, choose or refuse, take what you will upon your use, but for figures of vessels kind, every man follow with his own mind. The best fashion is, ye may be sure, she that best concordeth with vessel of nature, and figure that best concordeth with quantity, and with all circumstances all matter best is she. And this showeth well Albertus Magnus in his book De Minerabilis. Hereof a secret disclosed was by my good master to more and less, saying, Sedus non de fedon nobis vas nihil de se. And that is glass. I didn't have a whole lot to add to this because it is dealing with physical alchemy, right? I do not have experience with physical alchemy. I can understand the concordances that it is saying, right? You need a lot of room for vaporization to go into condensation. I mean, makes sense. Some things are suitable for some substances, some are not, right? Stone, you're not going to be able to burn away, but you might be able to melt some things. Calcify, for instance, different types of clay. Absolutely true. I think absolutely true. You got thick clays, you got sandy clays, you got fat clays. There's a lot of different types of clay. I mean, used to be a soil lab manager, and so I am fairly well versed in that. Some of them will absolutely burn away. Right? There is organics included in them. There is a process of refinement that you can use to get there. That was basically what was described. Some of it's glass, some of it's stone, some of it's whatever, but you need the appropriate tool for the appropriate thing. There may have been a secret here, right? This is si dues non disset, right? This is God, not disset, not dissenting. Noble was dead, disset. And now, I don't know this. This appears to be maybe French, but I'm not sure, right? It resembles French, but I'm not positive. All right, next. Instruments needful there be more, as of furnaces ordained therefore. Old men imagined for this art a special furnace for every part. Every each devising after his own thought, but many furnaces of them be not. Some were too broad and some too long. Many of them did nature wrong. Therefore some furnaces may well be used, but many of them must be refused. For they were made but by advice of them which seemed and were not wise. The most commendable fashion of them all in this book portrayed find ye shall. One furnace by me is found of new, such as old men never knew. Whole secret power with study sought, and with great cost was dearly bought. In him will be at one time wrought 80 works, and cost right naught. More than it should for one worker twain, therefore profitable it is certain. This is a furnace, an oven, that appears to be able to do multiple works at one time, right? So maybe it has a central fire and you're able to feed individual sections with the heat, right? That appears to be what is being said here. 80 degrees diverse you may get. That is what, 60? A score is 20, I believe. For 80 works, and every each of diverse heat. Yeah, so this furnace can do different levels. Within that furnace to serve your desire, all that they serve with one little fire, which of a foot square on line shall be, yet every each of the 80 as great space as he. Many purposes you may thereby fulfill, for here you shall have heat after your will. Of this instrument all men may not be sure, therefore it is not formed in picture. Another furnace, Of this instrument all men may not be sure, therefore it is not formed in picture. So he's like, I've got this something, but you're not going to get to see it. Right? The only real way to relay this information would be to give a diagram with it. And another furnace will serve 60 glasses truly, and yet far more. So that is another 60. That is 2 sets of 60. That is interesting. Every edge of them standing in like heat, as by the picture doctrine you may geet. Another furnace for this operation by me was found by imagination, notably serving for separation of dividends and for altification, and for disjunction called division, and for correction called ablution. Yet will for some things serve desiccation, it serveth full well for preparation. So for 6 things it serveth well, and yet for all at once, as I can tell, there you go again, right? This is yet another oven, right? This is a third oven that is able to do separated processes at the same time. This is a new thing which shall not be set out in a picture for all men to see. Another furnace and picture be shall, more full of perils than other furnaces all, made for magnetia, where bold men had doubt, to touch with hands a poor linine clout. Alright, we have discovered before that this is not magnesium, right? Magnesia. It's not going to let me get it. Alright, this is magnetism, right? And so this furnace is made for magnets. That is interesting as well. There is a process by which you can magnetize steel through annealing, which in the middle thereof unbrenned stood, for fear of flames burning fierce in wood, fierce in wood. Now this wood right here is not necessarily talking about wood that burns. We have discovered in this study that wood means angry, right? Fierce and angry. Which subtle furnace I deviled also, devised also. So this is a fourth furnace here. Which subtle furnace I devised also, in which I found many more wonders mo. Then is convenient at this season to tell, whole graduation is doubtful and causal, wherein magnesia, matter of great cost, must quickly be served or suddenly be lost. Of whole graduation, if you would not miss, consider your stoples, and learn well this. The more is the stopple, the less is the heat. By manifold stoples degrees you may get. Alright, I'm going to attempt to see if we can pop out this word just to see if it actually shows something. That is staples, not stoples. How about I wanted exactly the word that I said? So it's not going to show me. It's only going to show staples. That's got to be a steeple, I guess, right? A steeple is going to be a vent, and you can definitely affect the temperature of your furnace by the vent draft. As a matter of fact, right, we can talk about something that I do know. There is a device called a rocket stove, and a rocket stove works in a wondrous way. It is an open-faced furnace with, you burn just basic simple things in it. But if you build it correctly, and that building it correctly is dependent entirely upon the golden mean, right? It is 1/2, right? It has to play out in the exact proportions, or else it will not burn in the right way. But it will burn like a blast furnace, right? If you build it correctly, you can burn it like a blast furnace. That is adjustable, right? You can build one that is 2 foot tall. You can build one that is 50 feet tall. And depending upon how you build that, and the steeple would be the ventilation part of it, and that varies in size according to the chamber that you are using. Well, if you do that, then you can absolutely like you have variations in degrees that you can turn on and off, for instance, you can do some wondrous things. I have devised my own fire that if by some chance the world were to end, right? And by end, I mean begin again. And we lost electricity and the ability to heat and cool ourselves. I have devised a way by which I can do so using nothing but fire. I can heat and cool a house using a rocket stove. So for me, this absolutely is going to make sense, right? And it is alterations upon that, right? You have the draft that goes up, and then you have a chamber that comes down in another way, which allows a whole different type of drafting to take place, a reburning effect in some conditions. And so you can absolutely, by changing the draft in a fire, control how hot it burns. That's what he's telling you here, right? It's steeples. Got it. Who knoweth the power, the working and kind of every furnace, he may well truth find. And he which thereof dwelleth in ignorance, all of his work falleth upon chance. No man is sure to have his intent without full concord of art with instrument. Many more instruments occupied you shall see, than in this chapter now rehearsed be, which you must ordain by good or bad advice, or sad advice, and prove them beforehand oft, if you be wise. So, before you attempt to create something inside of the furnace, test it first. I am absolutely in agreement with that. There are dangers associated with heating anything. You should absolutely make sure that you understand exactly how hot you are making something before you attempt to do so. Back to the text. The fourth concord is full notable between this art and places convenable. Some places must needs be evermore dry, close from air, no wind ways wind eye. Some must be dark and dim of light, in which sunbeams none may light. For some places the truth so is, they cannot have too much brightness. Some places must needs be moist and cold, for some works as authors told. But in our works, in every place, wind will hurt in every case. Therefore, for every work and season, you must ordain places by reason. This is basically just telling you to make sure that you are using the appropriate place for the appropriate experimentation, but that wind, right? Wind affects draft. If you have a chimney, wind blowing across the chimney will increase the draft. That will increase oxygen coming into the furnace, thereby increasing the combustibility of the materials that are within it, raising the heat. And so if there is wind, it may indeed play an effect upon what you are trying to do. That is also true if you were with a candle flame, which would be rather similar to this, and wind will blow it out. And so you should make sure that you are in the right place to do the right thing. That does not just concord with physical alchemy. Philosophers said by their engine how it should be wrought with locks 9. Astrologers said it was a grace to find a chosen working place. For many things well wondrous do, in some places and elsewhere not so. But contrary wonders be of one thing, in contrary countries wrought without leasing, whereof none other cause may appear, but only contrary places of the sphere. Whereto places contrary of the ground, to them concordant and obedient be found. Hereof great evidence and witness full clear, in the magnet's stone openly doth appear. Whole north point draweth towards his country, which under south star driveth needles away. Well, we know what that's talking about, right? This is a compass, right? The magnet stone openly doth appear, whose north point it draweth towards his country, right? Now, towards his country is going to be if you are in the north, right? But What happens if you put a magnetized piece of iron in a free-flowing position, such as on top of a pivot, maybe immersed in oil, is that it will swing around. Right? Remember I told you can magnetize through heat? That is the process of creating a compass. And so it will align itself towards the magnetic field where it points north, right? And if you try to make it point south, it will drive the needle away. That's exactly what it's talking about, a compass. Now this was in the 1400s. Norton's ordinal was late 1400s going into the 1500s. I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but that was around the time when we began navigating with a compass, I believe. Right? 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That was only because he had a compass. They got it by the stars, but there is a lot of problems with that. Trying to go over open water without a compass would be a problem. And I can be corrected, right? I have not done an extensive study of Columbus, but I'm fairly positive that they did have it then. But I'm pretty sure that it was not around prior to then, right? I'm pretty sure that we did not have the compass, at least in mass production, at least in common vernacular prior to the 1400s. Again, that is something I am well willing to be corrected upon. I am not an expert in it. I do know a little bit about it. I have done it, right? I have created my own, so I can talk about it. It is difficult. It is difficult to create a compass. Wherefore wise men, which for this art sought, found some places concordant and some places not. And again, right, if you are in a highly magnetized area, say in round and iron mine or something along those lines, it would probably not be beneficial for you to try to, in that particular area, magnetize things. If there is a high magnetic sensitivity, such as from a ley line concordance, right, the ley lines go far, they're not the immediates, but they overlap in places, and that creates points of contention. If you are in one of those waypoints, you will probably have some trouble as well. You may find that it is beneficial for some of your works, and it is entirely detrimental for others. That is due to the magnetic flows of the Earth's energy, which is a thing, by the way. Truly, such places where lechery is used must for this art be utterly refused. Right now, lechery is going to be awfully close to that sexual tension that we was talking about before, the ribaldry. Right, lechery is giving away all of your penance to everyone that will take it. And so what he is basically saying is don't do this in a whorehouse or a bar. The fifth concord is known well of Clerk's works, between the sphere of heaven and our subtle works. Nothing in earth has more simplicity than the elements of our stone will be. Wherefore they being in work of generation, to have most obedience to constellation, whereof concord most kindly and convenient, is a direct and fiery ascendant. Being sign common for this operation, for the multitude of their iteration. Well known of Clerk's, between the sphere of heaven and our subtle works. Nothing in earth hath more simplicity than the elements in our stone will be. Whereof this being in work of generation, have most obedience to constellation. Now, constellation is going to be putting things in the correct place, right? You don't have a constellation unless the stars are in the right order. Whereof concord most kindly and convenient is a direct and fiery ascendant. Being sign in common for this operation, for the multitude of their iteration. Fortune your ascendant with his lord also, keeping the aspect of shrews them fro. And if they must let, or needly infect, cause them to look with a trine aspect. So this is zodiacal, right? Yeah. Okay, so constellation is going to go into astrology, right? And then we have ascendant, which is when the particular whatever is rising, right? Mercury ascendant means that it is with the rising sun. It is coming up at the dawn. Jupiter ascendant is going to be the same thing. forging your ascendant with this Lord, keeping the aspect of the shrews, right? So understanding what the aspect of the particular planet in ascendant is, and if they must let or needly infect, cause them to look with a trine aspect. Now, a trine is making a triangle out of 3, right? You have the moon, the sun, and Venus. It's going to be a little difficult for that one. How about the sun, the moon, or the moon, Venus, and Jupiter, right? If they are in a triangle to each other, that is a trine. For the white work, make fortunate the moon. For the Lord of the 4th house, likewise, be it done. For that is the sorum abscontium of old clerks. So of the 6th house for servants of the works, save them all well from great impediments, as it is in the picture, or like the same intents. Unless then your nativity pretend infection, in contrariety to this election, the virtue of the mover of the orb is formal, the virtue of the 8th sphere is here instrumental. With her signs and figures and parts aspectual, the planet's virtue is proper and special. The virtue of the elements is here material. The virtue ensued resulteth of them all. The first is like to a workman's mind, the second like his hand ye shall find. The third is like a good instrument, the remnant of a thing wrought to your intent. Make all the premises of other well accord, then shall your merits make you a great lord. So maybe it's not astrology, right? Yes, that all of this can absolutely be astrology. It even works completely with the terminology, except the white work. What is the white work? That is pulling up to get the philosopher's stone's first step, right? You pull the energy up, you get to the white. That is the white work in my estimation. Other people do it different ways. That is fine. But in that instance, then we have different things, right? You have the 4th house. That is going to be the heart. Likewise, it be done. The 6th house is going to be the third eye. That is going to be where you set intention. And so this can have a different interpretation. I am not saying that it is, but it can be. As it is in our picture, or like the same intents. Unless then your nativity pretend infection, in contrariety to this election, this may be your astrological sign being in opposition to a different thing that is in the sky, right? I am a Gemini. I believe that the opposite of me is Sagittarius. Not positive. But that would be this, right? Me trying to do works as a Gemini in Sagittarius would be in opposition to myself. The virtue of the mover of this orb is formal. The virtue of the 8th sphere is here instrumental. Now, this is what brings it to me, right? Because what is the 8th sphere? This big one on the outside, right? The Merkaba, the thing that holds you together through the magnetism, the vessel by which you are created. That would be the 8th sphere to me. With her signs and figures and parts aspectual, the planet's virtue is proper and special. And again, this part, that is speculation. This appears to be more in accordance with astrology. I am just looking for other concordance, right? I'm not saying that it is on this case. We may discover that, right? We discovered that the black stone, or the red stone, was actually the black one. The virtue of the elements is here material. The virtue and foul resulteth of them all. The first is like to a workman's mind. The second like his hand ye shall find. The third is like a good instrument, the remnant of a thing wrought with your intent. Make all of the, and so the workman's mind, his hand, the good instrument, that could be a correlation. It is not necessarily, right? The mind would be the soul. The body would be the hand. The spirit would be the instrument. The remnant, like a thing wrought to your intent. Make all the premises with other well accord, then shall your merits make you a great lord. Right? There is nothing in astrology that is going to make you a great lord, but there is in this. In this wise, the elixir of whom ye make mention is engendered, a thing of second intention. Trust not in geomancy, that superstitious art, for God made reason which there is set apart. Trust not to all astrologers, I say why, for that art is as secret as alchemy. The other is disproved and plainly forebode by the holy saints of the Church of God. Yeah, that's not a problem for me in the slightest. Trust not, ne love, or not necromancy. That one is, for it is a property of the devil to lie. And there is no devil. Trust to this doctrine, set herein your desires, and now learn the regiment of your fires. All right, so trust not all astrologers. We're going to talk about something. We ended the last video. I think it was the last video. Well, we didn't really end it. It was in the middle of it, I guess. But I've done an exploration of astrology, and as of yesterday, it is done. Pretty much. Like, I'm still going to casually investigate to see if maybe I am wrong. But for the first time since I've been doing this, there were several different astrologers that came into concurrence about something that was supposed to happen last week. It did not. Not in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. There's not even a way that you could add to it to see that maybe it was, right? You couldn't try to encapsulate what actually occurred last week with what was predicted to occur last week. And so for me, it is pretty much a wrap on that. It may be that all of these people, right, I believe there was 8 of them, that were in concurrence with each other for the first time since I've been doing this, right? Normally the astrologers are not in concurrence with each other, right? They say that this is moving here, but what it means is completely different for each and every one of them, pretty much. I mean, so there may be some astrologer with a greater understanding that is actually correct, but I do not have any reason to believe so. All right. We are going to dive into the next chapter. We have enough time. It's only like 4 pages. I thought you said you were not going to give us a show of it. This is some furnaces, right? This is a vessel resting on top of a hard top of a furnace that appears to be coal-fired. You have another one that appears to be for separation of some type. There's another one that has 5 different works going on it. Here's one that has, 7 works on it? There's an 8 right there. And then we have another one that has 6. Right, this is showing a bunch of different furnaces. All right, chapter 7. This is going to bring us to the end of Norton's Ordinal. A perfect master, you may call him true, which knoweth his heats high and low. Nothing may let more your desires than ignorance of the heats of your fires. Now again, this can be physical alchemy, but this also can be spiritual alchemy, because the heats of your fires, either cold or hot, and you have this wand right here, this sword of discernment, this, however you want to look at it, right? There's a lot of different designations for this particular thing, right? But each one of these little balls represents either the virtues and vices, right? This red one down here is wrath and love. The dark half of that represents wrath. The light half of that represents love. If the fire of your wrath is cool, then you have love. If the fire of your wrath is hot, then you have wrath. It is going to be the same accordance, right? If you add more, you're adding the masculine. Wrath is the masculine. That is the key for how that would work. But this can absolutely mean that as well. If you know the heats high and low, then you can balance yourself. Right. Of many authors written, you may see, totum consistit in ignis regimen. Ignis is fire, consists in fire, something the total consists in fire regimen, right? So that is going to be the process by which you use it. Wherefore, in all chapters you must so proceed, that heat work not more nor less than in need. Wherein many of Gebar's cooks deceived were, though they be wise in books, Such heat wherewith pig and goose is scalded, in this art decoction is called it. For mineral means serveth such heat, as to make our letharge to give sweat. Such heat as drieth lawn kerchief's fire. Interesting. In 30 operations serveth for our air, but for divisions you must use such heat as cooks make when they roast gross meat. Alright, so this is well back into the physical alchemy side of things. The same heat with a circular fire for separation of dividends we desire. But for circulation of elements, ignis candens observeth our intents, which fire must ever be coequal, in every minute and yet perpetual, so constant heat. For it may never abate nor increase, and yet the fire may never cease. Such wisely and look about for such air truly to find out. And in that fire no moisture may be, which hand may feel or eye may see. Ignis humidus, and other fire also, is, and yet it seemeth oppositional in adjecto. Such heat discovereth at certain tides matters cleaving to vessels' sides. Many mo things that heat may win, it maketh all thick matters to be thin. A philosopher mightily spake of this heat, and said the highest degree thereof to get shall cause engender such sickety as of dry heat shall it be in the first degree. Another fire is fire of desiccation, for matters which be imbibed with humectation. The other fire is fire of conservation, for all dry things of this operation. For magnesia is fire of effusion, full of perils and full of illusion. Not only peril which to the work may fall, but such also when the master hurt shall. Against which one receiveth no boot, ordain therefore to fetch breath from your foot. Provide for mouth, eyes, ears, and nose, for it is worse than 10 times the pose. Now this appears to be talking about safety equipment, right, and taking care, right. The peril which the work may fall, such also the master hurt shall, right. Against one, no boot. Ordain therefore to fetch breath from your foot. Provide for mouth, eyes, ears, and nose. Now, there are certain chemicals that are... It is a bad idea to be around with leather. Right? In particular, right? There are several salts, and I cannot pull them to mind at the moment, but there are several salts that if they impregnate leather in particular, will catch on fire. And so if you are dealing with that, not having a boot on might be beneficial. Right, that I'm just trying to see what this might be talking about here. But then, ordain therefore to fetch breath from your foot, provide for mouth, eyes, nose, ears, and nose. That seems to be talking about trying to take care so that you don't get hurt. Now, this may be that you need to have a device which allows you to pull air from down low. That would make sense since heat rises, and a great deal of the chemicals do, but some of them don't, right? If you were separating chlorine, for instance, it would be severely detrimental to be breathing from the floor. The same is true with nitrogen and several of the others. They're heavier than the atmosphere and could cause you some severe problems. For it is worse than 10 times the pose. Men hereby have found pain sore because they had not this warning before. Ignis corrodens serveth in this art, elementa propinqua, wisely to depart. By one point of excel all your work is sent, and one point too little is insufficient. Who can be sure to find his true degree? Magnifia magnus in igni shall he be. Magnify magnet in fire. It is harder to know truly he might. There is no trial for it but our eyesight. If only you would have known that mercury was the key to good measurements in temperature. Therefore all men fail in his presence. When heat is learned with cost of experience, of this heat in special, Anaxagoras said thus, Nemo primo fronti repetor discretus. Another is heat of mighty coaction for minerals that be of hard liquefaction. This heat cannot be too strong, for he continued never so long. Another is heat of calcination for foul metals for their preparation, which may not bren, ne do them melt, for so all they may soon be spilt. This one I have a little bit of experience with. Now, it's not necessarily calcination. I mean, it can be considered that way, but smelting. I mean, if you take iron ore and you create a vessel of clay in the correct proportions with the correct draft, you can create a fire in it that will purify iron oxide into iron, so that you can then take that and further refine that into something that you can use to create things, because even then what you get is an iron bloom, which needs further refinement. And so this could be talking about that, right? This is a way of looking at it, right? Metals in their preparation, which do not bren, I guess that's bend, nor do they melt, for all of them may soon be spilt, right? The 12th is heat, for to sublime all the spirits of the mind. The last heat of this goeth for all, when to use projection our stone shall fall. Use maketh mastery, there is no more to sain, but he that faileth must needs begin again. Now I have taught you everything by name, as men teach other the way to Walsingham, of every village, water, bridge, and hill, whereby wise men their journey may fulfill. So may a clerk by this doctrine find this science well, if he be clear of mind. All other may find himself hereby a fool, to deal therewith which little can of school. For this is the end of all worldly cunning, where to attain can neither pope nor king, by their honors nor by their great counsel, but only by virtue and grace, as authors tell. This precious stone will not be found nor wrought, but he be rightly, devoutly sought. The authors forenamed with this book of mine showeth of alchemy all the doctrine. If ye complete their sentences all, not by opinion, but after this ordinal, for in this ordinal I set you from all doubt, is nothing said wrong, nor one point left out. The days were when this doctrine and ground has pleased me more than 1,000 pound. 300 pounds was not my desire, as would have bind this chapter of the fire. And may veil not lords, nay ye friends all. Why so noble a science as all men this art call, is here set out in English blunt and rude, and for this is so made to teach a multitude of rude people, which, dealing with this works, 10,000 laymen against 10 able clerks, whereby yearly great riches in this land is lewdly loft, as wise men understand. And many men of every degree yearly be brought to great poverty. Cease, laymen, cease, be not in folly ever. Lewdness to leave is better late than never. All that hath pleasure in this book to read, pray for my soul, and for all both quick and dead. In this year of Christ 1477, this work was begun, honor to God in heaven. And that is going to be the end of Norton's Ordinal. Hopefully, I brought a little bit of enlightenment, not too much confusion, to a somewhat difficult topic. I didn't have a whole lot to add today. I know I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize. I didn't have a whole lot to add. I do not have an extensive amount of experience with alchemy. I do with smelting and forging. I have a little bit of experience in brewing things, up to and including alcohol. I've not done any distillation of spirits, right? And so I don't have the knowledge that would be necessary in order to extrapolate some of these things. I tried to make some nebulous connections to spiritual alchemy, but for the most part, this today was not dealing with that. Other parts has been, overwhelmingly so. This one not as much, right? This one, I believe that these last two chapters were definitely laying out actual information, right? This is actual physical alchemy, but it was more to disguise the things that were hidden in the other chapters. That's going to bring us to the end. I don't have a whole lot to add. Again, physical alchemy is not my forte. I want to get there. I am not there yet. So, if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that was said. Put it in the box. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership, picking up a copy of my book where I teach you spiritual alchemy, or reaching out to me through any of the links down below. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pittstake. Peace.